What's going on, fellas? Lost and Found Dating Channel, back at you again this week with yet another video topic. As I always say before each and every video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, click that bell, that way you guys will be in the know as soon as we come out with new content. Before we get into this video, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support you've been giving. I've been seeing all the likes, all the comments on the videos, all the new subscribers, all the messages we've been getting on our social media. So I want to say thank you guys for that. This team has been putting forth tons of effort to make sure we put out the best content as possible for you guys and make sure we have a video for you guys every week. That being said, we have tons of videos, tons of things to chat about, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So once again, I want to say thank you guys and stay tuned. Let's get into this week's video. All right, guys, so for this week's video, we're gonna be talking about something that I think is very important. And as I was thinking to myself, brainstorming about different topics and different video ideas, I sometimes think about questions that I would ask myself if I was a guy asking about dating and different topics. And one of the questions that I came up in my own head was, what's the single most important part of the date, right? The date that you go on, maybe it's a first date. What is the single most important part of the date? What's the most important thing that's going to contribute to your success on that date? So that's what we're going to talk about for this week's video. So some of you guys, I'm sure, are wondering, what is the most important thing when it comes to that date? And I'm going to tell you guys firsthand, the most important part of the date is you. Now I'm gonna repeat that and I'll give a little pause for dramatic effect to make sure I really drive it and sell it home, because I want you guys to understand this. The most important part of the date is you. Guys, when you first meet a woman and you're going on those first few dates, you really do not want to go overboard as far as how much money you're spending on the date, as far as how extravagant of a date you try to plan, how many activities you try to pack into that date. You really want to avoid doing that. Now, the reason why I want to stress that is because I've heard some ridiculous horror stories as far as guys spending way too much money on that first date. And I know some of you guys, as you're watching this video, might be thinking, well, hey man, it's his money. Why do you care if he wants to spend, upwards of $100 on the first date? Why do you care? Why does it make a difference to you? And the reason why I wanted to touch on that topic and why it's important to me is because for me personally, I know guys who, have really spent beyond what they're comfortable with financially and beyond their budget as far as that first date. And like I said, these are guys that I know, family, friends that I know personally, and I know their financial situation. So I know when they're not spending beyond their means. And I know sometimes guys can have a habit of spending way too much on that first date when they're going out with someone, when they're getting to know the woman. And another thing, guys, is it's not just a financial thing. Obviously, spending too much money and spending beyond your budget is something that you want to avoid doing, but sometimes it's also just a self-value thing, right? Sometimes when you don't feel like you bring enough to the table and when you don't feel like you bring enough as a guy to that date, sometimes you try to compensate by planning extra activities or by spending a lot of money to compensate for what you feel like you don't bring to the table. So as I said, it's not just a money thing for me. That's not the only reason why I'm compelled to talk about this. Like I said, it's also a self-value thing. I don't care, guys, if you made 100 grand a month. If you feel like you have to spend a lot of money or you have to shower her with these expensive dates or these expensive trips in order for her to want to spend time with you, that to me says that you don't feel like you're up to par as far as the qualities and the things that you bring to the table for that date. And that's something that never sits well with me. I want guys to feel like they themselves, bring enough to the table where they don't have to try to use fancy dates or planning a lot of things into the date in order for the woman to want to see them again. Now, I want you guys to understand that there's nothing wrong with putting forth effort. There's nothing wrong with when you're planning the date to go beyond the bare minimum. There's nothing wrong with putting some thought into the date, right? Those are all things that I encourage you guys to do when you're planning the date. But it's important to keep those things in perspective, right? Those are qualities and things that you can do that are totally separate from the financial aspect of the date. And guys, I want you to understand that there's nothing wrong with putting forth effort. There's nothing wrong with going beyond the bare minimum. And guys, I want you to understand that there's nothing wrong with going beyond the bare minimum. There's nothing wrong with putting forth effort. There's nothing wrong with putting some thought into the date, but you have to keep things in perspective. If this is the first date, especially the first date, and this is someone you're just getting to know, there's no reason for you to spend beyond your means in order to try to impress her or in order to try to build interest. Now, I want you guys to understand there's nothing wrong with putting forth effort. There's nothing wrong with going beyond the bare minimum. There's nothing wrong with putting thought into the dates that you're planning, but you have to keep things in perspective. If this is someone whom you've just met and you're just getting to know them and you're planning that first date, there's really no reason for you to spend beyond your means financially. And I know some of you guys out there might be watching this video and you're thinking, look, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Who cares? It's not that serious if I spend a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. You know, maybe I'll just pick up an extra shift at work, or I'll work some overtime, or I'll spend an extra day doing Lyft or doing Uber. You know, it really does matter. And it's not just about the financial thing, but it's also how you're coming across. When I schedule dates, part of what I'm doing is I'm also thinking about how I come across as a guy. So when I schedule that first date, what I'm also doing is I'm setting the tone for how I date and what I want the woman to expect moving forward, right? Those of you who've been watching my videos know that outside of my full-time job, I'm also a self-employed personal trainer. If I have a client who's working with me the first day, I'm not gonna train them into the ground or make them totally miserable or completely exhausted from that first training session, right? I'm gonna challenge them and I'm gonna make sure that they feel like they're putting forth effort, but my goal and my aim isn't to try to run them into the ground. I want to challenge them, and I also want to give them appropriate expectation of what to expect if they're working with me as their trainer moving forward. It's the same way as far as dates, right? Let's say on that first date you spend $100+. It's kind of setting up this trajectory where she may start to expect, okay, this guy, you know, he's comfortable spending $100+ on dates. Whereas for me, I would rather set a cap of, let's say $25, $30, still put forth effort into the date, still put forth some thought, you know, as I'm playing the date, but I don't have to break the bank. I don't have to go outside of my financial means, and I can show her that we can still have a good time while I'm on a budget. And the nicer dates and the more expensive dates, those can come down the road as we continue to date, as the courtship progresses. I have no problems, and I'm not opposed to spending money and doing nice things and taking someone out, but I have to get a sense that the woman I'm dating, you know, they're equally as invested as I am. Maybe we've been dating consistently, or if we're in a relationship, then it's totally appropriate to do those kinds of things. But if you're talking the first or the second date, you really don't know her level of interest. There's no reason for you to invest beyond your means. You know, from what she's invested, she's pretty much investing her time for the most part. She's investing the time that it takes to get ready, to spend time with you. You should think of the date as that same kind of investment. Yes, you might be spending money, but you don't want to be spending more than you're comfortable with. The main thing that you're investing is your time. Guys, when I go on a first date, this is my mentality. The activity for the first date is me. We may go ice skating, we may go bowling, we may go for a walk, we may go get ice cream or pastries. Those are just sort of superficial aspects of it. That's just the packaging of how I package the date. But as far as the content and as far as the activity, that's me. That's where I come in. I think a lot of guys out there, you focus too much on the packaging of the date, right? So you try to package the date with this really nice restaurant or this really fun activity, which is awesome and it's a great idea. But that activity or the event that you're trying to plan is well beyond what you should be spending on that first date. And part of that could be where you're kind of coming with the mindset of, look, I've got to go all out, right? This is my only shot. I've got to go all in, show her how much fun we can have, show her how awesome of a date I can plan, because if I don't, she's not going to want to spend time with me. She's not going to want to go on a second date if she isn't impressed by what I'm bringing to the table and how I'm packaging this date. Guys, for me personally, I live in a pretty suburban area where you can imagine there's tons of cool activities and tons of cool events and different places, both indoors and outdoors, that are awesome ideas and things that I love to do, but that are pretty costly. And I'm not just going to do that on the first date because the cost factor, that's something that I have to consider. I would instead do something that is a little bit more comfortable for me on that first date and is more within my means financially. And aside from the cost perspective, guys, a lot of the really fun dates that I like to go on or the things I like to do, I wouldn't necessarily do on the first date because I usually try to talk and learn about her. Some of those things and some of the dates that you guys are planning or trying to organize, it can be a little bit of a distraction and a deterrent as far as being able to have a conversation. There's so many different activities and so many distractions and things to do with the venue that you go to or whatever you try to plan that you don't really have any time to actually sit down and sit face to face and actually learn about each other. So some of those quote unquote fancier dates, they're a lot of fun and they're great things to do, but they can sometimes be a distraction for those first couple of dates where generally you want to do more talking. So that is the message for this video, guys. Remember, the most important part of the date is you. I want you guys to understand that it's not like some graph where the more money that you spend, the better the likelihood of her wanting to see you again or wanting to spend more time with you or being more interested in you. It doesn't necessarily work that way. I can tell you firsthand that I've been on dates where I've spent 25, 30 bucks and never heard from the woman again. And I've also been on dates where I spent $5 on 2 cups of ice cream, or dates where we just walked or went on a hike or explored a cool neighborhood and I spent $0. And as soon as she got home, as soon as she left the date, she's telling me how great the date was, how much fun she had, and she's asking me, hey, when's the next time that we're gonna see each other? So understand that it's not just a how much money you spend kind of thing. You can spend no money at all and have a great date, or you can spend a lot of money and the date doesn't go well and you never hear from her again. So don't think that you have to spend a lot of money or you have to plan this huge extravagant first date in order to build chemistry with the woman and in order for her to want to see you again. Now, in saying that, I want you guys to be reasonable. I don't want you to watch this video and then start planning a whole bunch of Wendy's and Burger King and McDonald's dates. All right, let's be reasonable, let's be sensible here. I don't want you to plan your next couple of dates at Wendy's and invite the girl to go get some burgers with you, and then you tell her, well, I looked at Lost and Found dating channel and the guy told me I don't have to spend any money on dates. I'm getting you this burger, you better appreciate it. Guys, let's be sensible, let's be reasonable here. That's not the message that I want you to take from this video. I don't need you using me to justify that kind of decision and then you know, me and my team, we got to catch heat for your interpretation of what I'm saying. All right, let's be reasonable. That doesn't mean start planning Wendy's dates. It just means that you can put thought into the dates while not spending beyond your means, all right? And make sure you understand there's a difference between an inexpensive date that's thoughtful and just a lazy date or a cheap date where you kind of are intentionally hinting at, you know, I'm spending as little money as possible. Hey, we can go to this fast food place and get some burgers, or, you know, we'll split a cup of fries. You know, let's be reasonable, let's be sensible here. All right, guys, do me that favor. I appreciate it. So again, guys, the take-home message for this video is it's about what you bring to the table. You know, have that mentality in mind and have that sort of lead you as you're planning the dates. The most important part of the date is you. It's not all the superficial things and all the different restaurants and things that you try to plan. The most important part of the date is you and what you bring to the table. That's going to set the tone of the date. So I'm wrapping this video up, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it. Make sure you comment down below. And of course, subscribe. We're gonna be coming out with videos every single week, and you wanna make sure that you're the very first to know when we come out with new content. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace.